Welcome back to the Lion's Den. Today, we speak with Wes Mathews, the founder of Stealth Consulting, which is a firm that provides fractional CMO services to small businesses. Chief Marketing Officer, CMO. Before Wes started Stealth Consulting, he actually started a digital marketing agency, grew that for over a decade, and then exited, which is a really cool story. So we spent a lot of time digging into that as well. Wes is a really cool guy, so I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing his story. Wes, welcome to the Lion's Den.
Nico, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I love your microphone setup, by the way. Very clear that you're a podcaster yourself.
Thanks. It's fancy.
Love
Makes
it.
me sound better,
Well,
I guess. Makes me look better. I don't know.
That's right. Well, let's jump in. I want to start with High Level Marketing, which is the digital marketing firm you founded back in 2009.
Yeah.
And you ran that for about, I'm looking at your LinkedIn page, about 11 and a half years before selling. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, that's about right.
Cool. Why did you decide to sell?
Yeah, great question. Big one to start, right? Million things that kind of go into that. But, I started that company. I was young, right? I'm 42 now. Started that company, I think, when I was 26. Kind of launched in 2009, but obviously, as any entrepreneur knows, there's like some time leading up to that moment, right? So, I was fortunate enough to find a partner that was sort of opposite to me, right? We both had entrepreneurial vision, but he was very much systems, process, technology. I was more relationship, just like the vision of where we needed to go as an organization, right? The drive. And, growing that company, we learned a ton, right? I learned a ton about myself. I mean, so many learnings along the way. Implemented EOS into my company in 2014, the entrepreneurial operating system. But ultimately, we were a website design and development company targeted around home services. And we also did organic optimization and paid search. So if you want to strip it down to the core, there was a lot of things that happened, right? COVID came in 2020. We had a lot of clients, thousands of clients paying us monthly. So my model was reoccurring revenue. COVID kind of rattled the cage, right? And at that time in 2020, 4 kids, kind of man, at what point do you take some chips off the table and go home, right? Like if you've ever been in the casino, I've got buddies that like to stay too long and then they come home and they have nothing left and they're all pissed off. I didn't want that to happen to me. So my partner and I kind of looked at each other and said, we've kind of taken the company to a point where we both were like, man, we're going to have to invest heavy resources into this organization personally and or take on this huge liability to get it to the next level. And I'm like, I don't have it in me. He didn't have it in him. And thinking about website design, development, organic, and paid search, we had a nice long run with it. But I'm also thinking about AI, and we're a product. So you're either the best or it's a race to the bottom. And I'll be honest with you, I started to despise anything website related, SEO, chatter. I just didn't I just got farther and farther away. So we looked at each other and said, man, what if we just take some chips off the table, secure our family and our situation? Because everything I do is personal, family, business, right? Those 3 things. And then swing for the fences. So that's what we did. We sold 80% of the company in 21 and both stayed on for 2 years to transition that company. But really it was to kind of protect and actually take a step back and say, man, we got to appreciate what we built, but also know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and let's diverse our assets a little bit. And that's essentially what we did. And then here we are 3 years later, right?
Wow. That's cool. And so you mentioned you ended up, it was a majority sale, but not a complete sale of the business. And you ended up staying on for another 2 years, you said. So I saw that your role shifted from CEO to Chief Growth Officer. So, how did this all sort of enter into the deal? How did you find your buyer and how did the conversation kind of lead to you taking a different C-suite role for a couple of years?
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, I was getting calls once, twice a day, emails. I was the prettiest girl at the ball, right? Everybody wants me because digital marketing was really sexy at that time. And I'm getting calls all the time, right? And so people would call me private equity. I would entertain them a little bit. But one day a guy reached out. He looked just like Grant Cardone. I don't know why I took the phone call, but I actually liked the guy. He was pretty cool. And I gave him this big FU number, right? I said, If you can give me this, I'll give you the keys right now. He starts laughing and we get along and we stay in contact. And I just like the guy we're talking. And then he's like, hey, I know another digital marketing company. I think you guys should meet. So he's ready to set us up on a blind date with no skin in the game.
Mhm.
And I'm like, screw it. I mean, it's COVID. I'm working from home. Like, whatever. I got nothing else better to do. And there was a lot of work that I did behind the scenes with my partner and our COO with like our top 3 initiatives and where we need to make capital investments. So when I met with the potential CEO, we started talking, and the first thing we started talking about is just, when you find somebody sitting across the table that's doing what you're doing, and we're about the same size in terms of revenue, we just dove deep. Like we show up, like we've got war wounds, we're just like, all right, here's where we're at. And the top 3 things that were like sort of bugging me or we need to make deep investments, they had already been doing. And they lacked a technology component, and I'm like, we got that. Like, that's nothing. So there was like this serendipitous moment of like, you have what I need. These guys want to take this company in the future. So I'm like, man, this CEO wants to be CEO and they have a COO who wants to be COO. We're sort of tapping out behind the scenes. Like, I don't want to be in the business any longer. I don't want to operate it. And it just kind of was a perfect marriage in the beginning. So that was like, it fell into that. So it wasn't like, I'm going to put this thing on the market and shop it to investment bankers. Maybe I should have done that in hindsight. Maybe not. But it was, hey, here's this opportunity to like move fast. I had a lot of people internally in my company saying, Wes, what's next for me? I want to grow with this company. I'm sitting here like, this is it. Like, work harder. I mean, I didn't have this. My growth mind stopped. So I also looked internally and said, man, like, this is the best position for my team to kind of move into a larger organization so we can continue to scale. And if I can change what I'm spending my time on and help the company grow at a larger level to like 100 million, like, that's where I think I can add value. So there's that side of it. I think the other question of like, look, I think anybody that's been through a transaction or hasn't will quickly realize like it's kind of tough, like consolidating C-levels together, and we're the minority. So I think more or less it's like, look, I'm a sales guy at heart. I kind of hang out with sales. I'm relationships. So chief growth officer kind of made sense. I mean, really my role was to seamlessly transition everything over, right? But I never really had a fit. I mean, because again, it's like there's the day-to-day leadership team that's got to get built. We're building for growth. So we brought in a CRO. So that was my initial title when I came in, was CRO, and then we hired a real CRO from private equity. So, I mean, chief growth officer was, probably the best fit at the time, but it was always in the plan that, I'm not an employable guy. And I think when we sold the company and we really came together, the culture changed where like I really realized like, man, I'm not an employee. I'm not an employee of a company I started. And that was kind of the learnings for the last 2 years. So high level is great. They're running the company. Everything is good. And, I'm a shareholder, board member, phenomenal company that's focused on home services, healthcare, medical, like med spa. So like websites, organic and paid search, and they're starting to get into additional services. I mean, they just wash, rinse. I mean, it's a manufacturing machine. It's in a really good spot. Just didn't need me anymore.
Yeah. Was the integration complicated? Getting your team sort of integrated into the new overarching entity?
Yeah, and it was tough, right? Because I think I had implemented EOS into my business, and for people that may not know what that is, that's the Entrepreneur Operating System. So I thought I did a really good job of getting the right people in the right seat and buying into our culture. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of terrifying, right? I mean, if all of a sudden you show up and we're merging, but that was my job, I think, as visionary of the original company I founded, was to like seamlessly transition that over. So, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, some people were like, peace out. Some were like, we'll try it. And some are, still there. So, I mean, it was a big change, but the company needed to go through that evolution, right? I mean, the best way I feel like, because a lot of people are like, you got rid of your baby. And I'm like, well, let me explain this to you from my perspective, because I have 5 at one point babies, so I can actually speak from experience. High level marketing was not a baby anymore. It was a scrapping 18-year-old kid, young man, that's ready to take over the world. My job, I think my job as a parent is to grow and go my kids. Somebody told me that once. Your job is to navigate them, grow them, to be great human citizens of the world, right? And I think that's what I did for that organization. Like, it no longer needed me. It needed the next phase of its life, which was moving from an entrepreneurial run company. I'm an entrepreneur to a professionally managed company with buttoned up process, like professionally managed people that went to, like, I cobblestoned my company together to like 50 people, got it to a point, and then realized, like, in order to go to the next level, I have to get out of the way. Like, I was the problem to limiting the growth of that organization. So yeah, it was tough, right? I mean, there's still some like scars and some wounds and this, that, and the other, but again, I'm very much like time, and you gotta evolve. You can't just like be the same day in, day out. And that was the best thing that I still, in hindsight, I wouldn't change anything from it.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And honestly, I think that was a huge piece of wisdom that you just dropped there. I mean, if every entrepreneur could think of their business as their baby, their kid that they're raising, but the goal is to go them at some point. The goal is to send them off on their journey at some point. Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs get to the end of their journey, right? Like 65 years old, they're at the point of retirement. They haven't been thinking about how to send their business off into the next stage of life at all. Yeah. And it becomes a huge issue. But if that was kind of everybody's goal at the beginning, they could plan for it. I want to also ask you, I think, speaking from experience, my early career, my first couple entrepreneurial exploits, I think a lot of entrepreneurs set their goals for like 3 to 5 year build and exit, the aggressive ones. And I used to think that way very impatiently. But now I understand how the passage of time sort of brings you the gift of lessons learned. And as long as you're improving a little bit every day, you will get to your goal as long as you have that patience. You ran your business for 11 and a half years. Is what I'm saying resonating with you, where there's like a patience that you have to have and a persistence that you have to have over a long period of time to be successful?
Yeah, I'm in a unique position right now because when I first started my company, I really didn't have any patience. Like, I'm a visionary entrepreneur. I want to go. I want things done yesterday. Just going through this experience of selling the company and everything I've learned. Yeah, it's just, I constantly have to remind myself that it takes time. Like, the adage, like, Rome wasn't built overnight, right? I mean, there's so much truth to that, because in my brain, like, everything's like, some things are very easy or simple for me. But when you're trying to like grow an organization, it's not about you. It's about your team, people, technology. And that was probably the hardest learning for me that I still have to correct myself today is, give it time. Like, it's things have to season and marinate, and where before I was like go. And when you're wrapped up and making emotional quick decisions, that can be harmful in some cases. So definitely, big experience share for me is, things always take a lot more time. That's like been the beauty of like kind of my next company coming out of that experience is all the learning I went through, basically all the bad decisions I made and all the shit I went through to just help me not make those same decisions over and over again in this next endeavor.
Yeah. So let's talk about the next endeavor. So you started a business. Did you start it are you still on the board of High Level Marketing? Actually, let me ask that first.
Yes, okay. I am. So I'm still a shareholder, board member of High Level.
Okay. So you're still somewhat involved in that, quarterly meetings, that sort of thing, but you have all this free time now, and you started another firm called Stealth Consulting. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So, we when I started High Level Marketing, we service thousands of customers in terms of their website design, development, and SEO. So for me, that we were a product company, but we did one thing very, very well, which I called it the kickoff call. So there wasn't a lot of strategy into what we were doing because clients were coming to us and we're getting clients that we need a website, we need SEO, we need leads now, right? That was the tone. So being able to take a step back, right? I'm like, where can I add the most value to companies? And I love entrepreneurial run companies. Like, I will not engage with a enterprise level. You couldn't pay me enough money to do anything with a corporate organization. So I'm like, okay, I love entrepreneurs. That's my experience. Where can I really add value? So I had this vision of like stealth, like when I was a kid, I remember the stealth bombers, and the whole idea was, you really don't know they're there, and they're like super high level. There's only a few of them, and they're best. It's like the best combat, like you're going to be able to. And I'm like, there's something there. And I live in this EOS world where, there's a visionary and integrator, which is CEO, COO, and then a company is sales and marketing, ops, and finance. Like that's a company to me. And any entrepreneurial run company can be very successful. So thinking about myself and my old partner, like where did we work really well? I mean, there was a time at high level 10 years ago when chaos was ensuing. And I'm like, man, imagine if you and I could take on a handful of clients and just like be chill. So in doing that, I'm like, man, we can really become a fractional CMO and own that marketing seat, because there's a big void in entrepreneurial run companies, which is the visionary or owner typically owns marketing, and then they're spending all kinds of money and they don't track, or they have no idea what's even going on. So we have so much experience in digital marketing where now we come in and what we do, what's called a blueprint strategy, is where people always want execution, like, hey, what should I do here? How much can I invest there? But they never back up to actually do the strategy. Like they'll spend tens of $1,000s a month for whatever, but then they balk at the idea of spending any time or money on strategy. So the problem we're solving now for entrepreneurial run companies is we come in and lead that strategic blueprint to really help that company understand where do they need to invest and what do they need to do and where's the ROI coming from. So in some cases, like their marketing company is not working, we'll fire them for them. We'll find another company. So I have a strong relationship with high level marketing in the sense of if that's the right fit client, high level marketing will be the partner fulfilling on the back end the actual website and SEO and fulfillment on that. So we're coming in as a fractional CMO, because I also believe that if you're an entrepreneurial run company under 20 million, you don't need to hire a full-time CMO and pay 200 grand a year. So that's one option, right? As an entrepreneur run company, you can hire a CMO, pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, and now you're married to their strategy and you're hiring that person to solve that problem. Or your other option is hire a marketing professional that you're still going to have to lead, manage, hold accountable. It's a lot of work. Or hire us, where we're coming in with the strategy and the execution. So I bring in our CMO and a marketing success manager, and we're a fraction of the cost, and we execute and deliver. So that's kind of the context of the problems we're solving. And I knew it was a problem, but I didn't realize how big of a problem it is. And we've been able to ramp our company really fast.
Yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, that's very, very similar to our company. We do effectively the same thing, but on the finance side of the house. So we're, fractional CFO, fractional FP&A type resources. And it seems like, I want to ask you this. It seems like even though we focus on finance or you focus on marketing, there's always some scope creep, because especially when it comes to strategy, when you're thinking at that, high level,
Yep.
And you're thinking about it from a marketing perspective, you're going to uncover that maybe the client isn't thinking about strategy at a high level from the finance perspective or the ops perspective. How do you handle that kind of challenge when you find that?
Yeah, that's the moving target, right? It's first of all, I get out of the way on delivery. So I'm completely out of it. So my delivery team, though, what we've done on the CMO side is we have a program. So we track our program. So let's say our program's like 80% of the engagement, and then there's 20% that's left open for the challenges of the day, whatever the client wants to talk about. But we're really coming in to help eliminate scope creep. And I think this is a differentiator for us versus other fractional CMOs. We have a program. And we're confident with our program because we have 15 years experience of managing a lot of projects, and we know where the bodies are buried and what needs to happen. So that's been a huge benefit to us, is just our prior experience and delivering that program and being very clear and object, like, hey, these are the guardrails early on. But we're also like, we're 80-20, right? Like I get that 20% is going to happen. So as long as they're not completely yanking us over here, we kind of let it ride a little bit. But yeah, it's always something that's going to creep up on you, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's the correct answer. I mean, if for any sort of fractional, executive out there, I mean, you do have to come in with your frameworks, tools,
Yeah.
programs, whatever you want to call it, the things that work for you. But you're right, you got to leave 20% open for whatever craziness
In
may
general,
happen.
like I think even for me, like that's a big learning probably in my experience of going through this whole transition, right? It's just even personally in anything, like just give it the 80-20 rule because you know, life's too short, man. There's too many things to get. There's always scope creep with everything, right?
So true, so true. Um, so, do you ever have difficulty when you come into a new client, right? You start a new engagement. Do you ever have difficulty like fostering that trust at the beginning?
Honestly, I think that's one of my unique abilities, right? So like right now, I'm pretty much on all the initial prospect and like we actually call it like a CMO deep dive. So I'm involved in everything on the front end. And I think that's just one of my top 3 unique abilities is this would be like really transparent and make sure it's a fit both ways and just utilize my experience, really get to know them. I mean, that's probably the one benefit and what I value the most of just having experience and being around entrepreneurs. They're checking us out, we're checking them out because there's a point in our process where I have that potential meet my delivery team because that's who they're going to be working with. So, yeah, I mean, that's like I'm having a ton of fun and I spend if I could spend all of my time there and just really vetting on the front end, like I would do that. And that's just thankfully it's been my unique ability and it's been super helpful for growing this company.
Yeah, and I mean, you hit on transparency. I think that's the key, at least in my experience. And I mean, we go so far as in our kickoff calls with a client, we just tell them like, "Hey, one of our values is precision, and like we're gonna precision in what we do, but also precision in what we say, and we're gonna tell you the truth,
Yep.
even if you're not gonna like it."
Yep.
And it's like if you start off that way, then you can tell them whatever you want to tell them as the engagement continues. And honestly, telling them what they don't want to hear makes them trust you more, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Um, okay. Are there any misconceptions that businesses might have about hiring fractional leadership?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. In my prior experience, I've hired people that probably only did a day and a half's worth of work a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this fractional concept is relatively new. And I think that there's this misconception that you've got to hire somebody full time. They got to be bought in 100%. And they got to, like, you got to have butts in seats and they got to be just pounding for you day in, day out. I think on the fractional CMO, what you deliver on the CFO side, COO, CRO, whatever C level, I think that there are many opportunities to just bring in a fractional. And I think it's such the misconception is being open to the idea. And I think if businesses like when they learn about it, like I had the light bulb go off on like, oh my gosh, like I've hired so many key executives and paid so much money and didn't get the deliverable I was asking for. I think you can find a right team. And I think you can actually potentially run a very successful company with a fractional leadership team. It just, you have to find the right one that's going to work right for your business. I think that's a misconception is just thinking outside of the box and doing things differently. And I think since COVID, you know, I'm in an office by myself now. Everybody wants to work from home. It's a completely different world. But I think just taking a leap, right? Like I love people that implement EOS because they get it.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's really our target market sweet spot. If people understand EOS, they understand the value guys like us and our companies offer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just say, yeah, be open to it. Like take some meetings, and I love it. I love fractional people. I just love them.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right too, because the types of people that start a business, a fractional consulting business, right? Fractional executive type business, they are people like you and me.
Yeah.
They can run quickly and do a lot in a short amount of time. And so if you compare somebody like that to somebody you could just bring in full time, you're talking about two totally different skill sets and two totally different capacities. And so you have to take that into account when you compare them.
Well, something I hit
Um,
on with people too is I say, if you want to hire somebody to fill that seat, what are you going to pay a CMO? 200 grand a year? What if they don't work out in 90 days? Like,
yeah.
you're going to fire them? Like, good luck. Have fun. Us, we don't have a contract. If we're not delivering value in 90 days, fire us. and we're going to have open conversations. So for me, I'm like, I'm selling through and creating the company on how I want to be treated. And, and that's people are hearing that now and they're getting it. They're like, yeah, like I have nothing to lose, everything to gain, so I really love that aspect of it.
Yeah. So what's your goal for Stealth Consulting? Are you trying to scale that and sell it? Or is this more of a, let me take on 10 clients a year, be really surgical with it and enjoy my life?
Well, since February, we've taken on 14 clients. So we're pretty busy. Yeah, I mean, I think where I sit right now, right, I'm going to be 43 in a couple months. I don't really have a vision of selling a company again. Like I've gone through that where I've played a lot of golf. I've thought about just like waking up, not doing anything. Like that's just not in my wheelhouse. I'm looking to build a company through partners, vendors, great clients, scalable, where I'm not the bottleneck, my partner's not the bottleneck. Really diving deep, whether it's going CMO an inch wide and a mile deep, or going across, the whole fractional suite of executives. I have a podcast where I interview successful entrepreneurs. I'm having a ton of fun of doing that. And for me, it's as long as we're growing and adding value, man, I think I'm going to just be involved with Stealth until the day I die. I told my partner, like, until my mouth stops working, like we're having a ton of fun. We're in our zone of genius. We're adding a lot of value. Like I'm having a lot of fun. So I'm in a good spot right now. So I wouldn't sell the company right now if somebody offered, but
Awesome. No, that's really cool to hear. Okay. So I want to kind of wrap up, but I did want to ask, outside of the business realm, you're a very successful guy. You have a lot of wisdom, obviously. So outside the business realm, what personal habit has contributed a lot to your success as an entrepreneur?
The good ones or the bad ones? Yeah, I mean, some people look at me and they're like, you're crazy because I have 5 kids, right? And they all range from 14 to 18 months. And I think like that grounds me. I think I need chaos around me. I'm super involved with everything that they do. And I think that's just been the motivating factor for me. And like, it's a hobby. I golf during the week. I love to kind of parlay golf with prospects, clients, friends. It's something I love to do. You're focusing on your own effort, which can either be really good or really bad. You're never going to win. But then you're spending 4 hours with somebody and you get to know them and see how they react and, spend time with family. I go through phases of working out, not working out. But the one thing that's been consistent with me that I think has been super helpful, people say like, what keeps you up at night? Nothing. Like I sleep. I love sleep. I value sleep. I sleep at least 8 hours a day. And honestly, I think that's the one thing that's kept me like the most level-headed is just making sure I prioritize sleep. And, been fortunate to be married for almost 20 years. So support structure behind that. And yeah, just a lot of kids sports. I'm the busiest non-paid Uber driver in the state of Michigan because I cart kids around all day. But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's awesome. Super inspiring. We're having our first kid actually in July. So
Awesome.
Excited to experience some of what you've been experiencing for over a decade now. That's awesome.
It's cool. The one thing I've done that I've shared a couple people, really haven't shared it too much, but I do what's called Starbucks Friday with my kids. So before school, I take them to Starbucks. And like we just grab coffee, they grab whatever, we spend an hour but in a world of like inconsistent, like that's been a consistent thing that my kids really look forward to, that I look forward to. Because I think in a world of entrepreneur, like, I mean, there's days you're like banging your head against the wall, right? And then there's days where you're like, I feel good. I'm, revenue came in and we're doing this. And then, but for me, it's been having some type of routine because I'm just not a routine guy. So having those small things to look forward to has been super helpful. But for me, it's like when I thought I could check the box and sell a company and like celebrate and like that was it, like these fireworks to go off, it was quite the opposite effect.
Yeah.
It was like, now what?
Right.
Now what? Because I think you realize you're not really doing it for the money. I mean, the money's great and you got to sustain and, live life, but you got to find that passion. And my partner and I right now, we're like in that extreme passion.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Well, sweet. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. For everybody listening, highly encourage you to visit stealthconsulting.com or reach out to Wes for a conversation about how a CMO can take your business to the next level. Wes, thank you for joining me on the Lion's Den.
Nico, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.